Hello again. Welcome to the training video for the check payment screen in PayPak Professional 4.0. This screen is used to prepare and print checks within PayPak Professional. It's not the same as checks which you write in a handwritten checkbook or checks that you generate from your accounting package or check writing package outside of PayPak. These are PayPak generated checks where the correct payment method option is check. Any other type of check, you should use the other option as the payment method. So let's show you how it works by logging in. The check payments feature is found under the Transactions menu, along with the 4 other payment options in PayPak Professional: cash payments, check payments, deposit payments, and other payments. Each one has its own video, and you would notice if you watch the videos that they're very similar in how they work. So we click on the check payments screen. At the top you've got a list of the styles, which are, there's a list of check payments. You can print a list of the payments. There are 3 sample checks at present which you can try out. We're going to look at them shortly. Over on the top right you've got a list of the years. Right now there's only 1 year in there. These are years for which checks have been prepared. Only 2020 so far. We're going to prepare a batch of checks for 2021. When you select the year, this label here shows you the number of payments prepared in that year, and there are 11 for 2021, and here they are. There's 11 entries. As you select each payment, the entries in that payment, the checks in that payment, are listed below, and the number of checks is shown here. You can select the checks for printing, sorry. So I've got 5 there. I can select all, or I can go none. And if we come here, right, if you look at the column for the checks, there's a column for type, so you can see if this is a payment for net pay or if it was a payment for deductions. Net pay payments would typically go to an employee with the employee name, and payments for deductions will mostly go to an institution such as Sagicor Life or Guardian Pension, institutions from which deductions were made from staff, and they could be deductions from several employees, all being remitted under one check. The other columns are the original. This is the amount of the payment. You've got an overpaid and underpaid column, and then you get the total amount. The amount would be the original minus the overpayment less the underpayment. Sorry, plus the underpayment. And we have a training video for overpayments and underpayments which you can look at to get an idea of how the overpayments and underpayments works and understand the concepts there. That overpayments and underpayments applies to all of the 4 payment screens: cash payments, check payments, deposit payments, and other payments. The other column is the check number, and then there's the number of times printed. So at the bottom of the screen I can select all, and I can then print these. I'm going to print, let's choose, well, right now we're looking at the check payments. That's not a list of checks. That's a list of checks. It's not individual. It's not actual check style. So let's show you what that looks like. It's like a check listing. There, it just lists the information you saw in the checks grid. But if I look at a sample check, now if we'd done a check for you, the checks are customized for particular companies, and you would see your check in this list, and you select that as your style. Let's look at the 3 styles and give you an idea of what this can do. So I'm going to print and preview. Right. And this is a typical check which you get. It will print 3 per letter size page without a stub. So it's just plain checks. The date, the amount in words and figures, the amount as numbers, and the name of the payee. These will be pre-printed checks typically, which would have the company logo, the address, graphic design, and a MICR check number, so that it can be processed by the bank. What we're doing is printing the information onto that check. So what you're seeing here is not the actual real check itself, but the information that goes onto the check, and a graphic representing the size of the check. These are 7 checks here. Most of our customers will print either laser checks, which may or may not have a stub, or they may print perforated checks, which print on a dot matrix printer. Now let's look at the other styles. This style here shows the stub at the bottom. Let's go to, let's print this fellow here. Preview. Okay. Now this one has, for this particular batch, this has quite a number of entries. Let me see if I can find one where you don't get that overlap happening there. All print. This is designed for, right, okay, fine. This is much better now. This has less details, so it doesn't do the word wrap. For some customers, the number of lines on their pay slip, which is what the stub represents, it may be a smaller number or a larger number, and you have to design the check according to the needs of the particular company. If you don't have many deductions, you've just got taxes and maybe 1 or 2 lines for the gross pay, then you don't need as large an area for the stub. This particular check style prints a letter size sheet with the check information at the top, the date, the amount, the name, and the amount in figures. Note the little asterisks before and after the numbers to prevent someone from tampering with the figures. And it has 2 stubs at the bottom. So you'd probably, in this case, there'll be a perforation line along the bottom. The payee gets, the employee gets the top piece, the check, and their copy for a stub, and the company keeps as proof of payment the bottom stub. And again, there are 5 checks. Sorry, these are 5, yes. These are 5 checks there. Now let's try the other style. And this one has a stub at the top. Print, preview. Good. So this is a different style stub. There's just one payslip part of it in the middle. The top part is retained. This will be retained by the company, having the name of the person, the date the payment was made, and the amount of the check. This stub piece here shows who it was paid to, the date, and the payslip details. And at the bottom, this is the actual check part here, where you get the name of the person, the date. I think that is a check number in this case. Yes. The amount in figures and the amount in words spelled out. we've done a variety of layouts for our customers because checks comes in all sorts of forms and sizes. And if you're still printing checks, if you need to get checks printed, you need laser checks, just let us know and we can have them done within the software for you. Okay, so that's the actual printing of the checks. Now, I printed those ones just now. If I come back here, you'll see the number of times printed now shows 2, because I would have either printed, previewed, or emailed some of those. So the ones that will show the number of times printed there. Okay, now let's look at the buttons at the bottom. There's the add button is to add a new set of checks, and we'll get back to that in a moment, but just let me finish these other ones here. You've got the print, which is enabled when you've selected a check, one or more checks for printing. It's enabled now, it's off now. You can navigate through the list of payments by clicking first, next. It drops down to the payments list. I can go back. Each time you select the payment, the checks within that payment are displayed. And I can go to the last one as well. All or none is to select the checks displayed in the selected payment. You can select all of them. You can select some manually. You can invert your selection. You can turn off the selection altogether. The refresh button updates the elements on the screen. The settings button will save your choice of check style, your default check style that you wish to use, and it will also save settings such as this little divider here. You can position this where it best suits you. So I click settings, settings are updated. If I click reset, the settings are cleared. Now we're going to prepare a new batch of checks. So I click on the add button, and this is the new check payment screen. At the top of the screen is a drop-down list where you can choose a batch ID, a batch date, or an earning date. Most people will choose a batch ID or a batch date. If you choose the earning date, that will select any entries in the selected batch or batches where the earning date matches the date that you have chosen. I prefer to use the batch date. Other people prefer to use the batch ID. So let's show you first how each one works. This number here, because I've chosen the batch ID, PayPak automatically selects the last posted batch for you. Now that batch may not necessarily contain checks. You'll have to click the display button, and if you click the display, it would have brought up any checks, any check payments within that batch, which is basically any entries where the payment method is set to check, and that's both net pay and deductions. Now I know there's a batch that has one, so I'm going to click here. Now I can click here and I can choose a single batch, or I can choose an earlier batch, or I can choose several batches. These are the ones from 2021. There's some in 2020, quite a lot there, and there's some batches in 2019. So if I wanted to pick one from here, and let's say 2 from here, when I update here, those are the batch numbers that have been selected. If I click display, I would see the entries for checks within them. They're all for net pay. Now, if as I said, I prefer to use the batch date, I can click here. That's the default batch date that came up there just now. I'm going to choose the 26th of August because I know that there are entries in there. I could have chosen more than one date. Let's choose, let's try some others and see. They may have checks in them, I don't know. I know the 26th contains some. I do a display. Good, and here they are. Now, I've chosen dates in July of 2020, August of 2020, and September of 2020. Let me just go back and also choose, let me see if I can find one from 2021 as well. No, unfortunately not. Okay, the reason I'm choosing the dates is there is a separation section at the bottom where when you generate the checks, you can group them. And this is if you're printing several checks for several batches, or checks that span across different periods. You can group them by the year, so that a person who may have had entries, let's see if we can find some for 2019 perhaps. Probably will get some in there. And turn off the 2021 ones. Good. So we've got some for 2019 and we've got some for 2020. So if you wanted to separate them, if you wanted to use this, turn on the separation option to separate by years, each person who had a check, who had payments in 2019 would get one check for all the 2019 payments and one check for all the 2020 payments. If you want to separate by months, the person would get one check for September 2019. Then you've got another set for October 2019. You've got November 2019, that's 3. December 2019, July 2020, August and September. So by my count, that's 7. You get up to 7 separate checks for each person who may have had entries in these periods. Most of the time, customers would be turning this separation off, and the person would get one check for the total for the period. Okay, so I'm going to, let's go back. I don't want so many. That was just to show you the option there. So let's go back here and turn all of these off. None. None. And in 2020, I want the 26th of August. There you go. Cool. And display. All right, so these are the 5 payments that were done by check in the month of August. You can choose a date. All right, well, let's go back up. Here you go. Jumping ahead of myself. Normally, most people will choose the all option for all the entries. There's an option also for unpaid and paid. What that is if you'd gone to a batch, they were, as they are here, 5 checks in the batch, but for some reason you only wanted to prepare 3 of them at that point in time and leave back the other 2. When you've prepared the check payment, the first 3 are marked as paid, the other 2 are unpaid. So if you came back again, you could then select unpaid, and that would choose the other 2. Or if you wanted to do a redo and reissue those 3 checks again, you could choose the paid and do your redo of the 3 that were there. But most times most customers will choose all because that's what they want. There are 2 check boxes here for overpayments and underpayments, and we have a video for the overpayments and underpayments screen. I'd refer you to that video. I suggest that you take a look at that. Highly recommend it, so that you understand the concepts and how the overpayments and underpayments work, because they will flow into cash payments, check payments, deposit payments, and other payments. All right, the next thing we have here is the date. These checks were done 26th of August. Let's say I want to reissue them again with today's date, the 1st of May. I could also change the date to any other date I wanted. I also have now to choose a branch. This is a branch from within the company, like where the company's bank is, the bank on which these checks will be issued. I'm going to choose First Caribbean in Oistins. I can add a reference. Cheque Payments for August 26, August 2020. Good. So that's my reference. I'll also come back and turn these two on. And we are ready to go. So once I've listed the entries I want, I can then click on Calculate. And that lists out the checks there and gives them, it assigns check numbers to them. There's an option in the authorities and authority branches screen where you set the last check number for the particular branch, and that keeps track of the check numbers in the system. Now, some people may have pre-printed checks where the check number is already on them. That's usually the case. And what would happen here is you can either come here, I think you can do it from here, you can put the check number in and it asks if you want to read numbers, and that will be the numbers that you're going to use. So because that can be then the number from the first check form in your printer, or you could leave it at 1, and we have a check control screen where after the checks are printed, you would then come and assign the actual check number once the checks are printed well, because there's always a possibility that a check could jam in the printer. If you are generating the check numbers from within the system, just let me show you the screen. Actually, can't do that right now, not when the screen is up. But in the authority screen, there is, for each branch, there is a last check number, and that's where you would seed the check number sequence by putting in the last check number from there when you start your first set of checks. Then from that point onwards, the check numbers are assigned sequentially. We will probably have a separate video of the check control screen to explain how that works. So we've got our checks. I'm going to leave the numbers as they are there, and then I'm going to click on Prepare. And it says you're about to create a new check payment. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I do. So check payment 12 successfully prepared. I can close the screen now. And there it is in 2020. That's my batch right at the top. And these are the 4 entries within it. And if I want to print them, I can select all. I will choose my check stub with the stub at the bottom, print, and preview, and there they are. This one has a bit of running over because this has a lot of extra lines in there. Let's go back to the other pages. Right. And if I wanted, let's say I wanted the one with the stub at the top, I'll save that in my settings. Right, that's what this one looks like. And like I said, it has a check number there, which will be done, which could be adjusted from the check control screen if that was not the actual check number of the check. If your check, either to control the check number, or if you wanted to print that check number on the check, which some checks have that and others do not. Well, that about wraps it up for this demonstration. Thank you very much for watching, and we look forward to the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.